The PC has some of the greatest adventures available, both AAA and indie scale. In this video with the 50 best PC games, there are games for all tastes. Here you'll find some of the best Steam games and best free PC games, as well as some of the best RPGs and best adventure games of recent years. So let's stop talking and come with me to the first game in the video. If Divinity: Original Sin 2 set a new standard for CRPGs, Baldur's Gate 3 raised the bar even higher. Set within the world and rule set of Dungeons and Dragons rather than Larian's own fantasy world, it's the culmination of years of RPG expertise. It's a game that seems almost impossible, an expansive world dripping with detail, a hugely complex main quest that feels like it reacts to almost every move you make, and an ocean of combat possibilities to play around with, all presented with fully acted cutscenes and beautiful environments. In our Baldur's Gate 3 review, we described it as one of the most authentic role-playing experiences out there, an entire, years-long tabletop campaign realized in astonishing fidelity. A single playthrough might take more than 100 hours, and you'd still have only seen a fraction of what the total game has to offer. A new gold standard for its genre, and perhaps an entire industry, the freedom that Baldur's Gate 3 offers make this an easy-go contender. Arthur Morgan's sprawling tale of loyalty, conviction, and the price of infamy is only the beginning of Red Dead Redemption 2. The marvelous PC port overhauled and further enhanced the gorgeous wild western atmosphere of Rockstar's most recent open-world adventure and added even more activities, unlockables, and impossibly fine details to its expansive map. It's possibly one of the biggest and best single-player PC games ever, and it has an extensive multiplayer mode too. The potential for hijinks within its enormous sandbox of towns, outlaws, and wildlife was already nearly limitless, but the PC version factors in new missions, treasures, gear, and more layered on top of the already 60-plus hours of story content in the base game. That's not even counting all the multiplayer bells and whistles included in Red Dead Online, to say nothing of the ability to expand and customize with mods. RDR2 on PC is handily a must-play for anyone with a rig beefy enough. At its core, Alan Wake 2 is a survival horror game, but it's a survival horror game wrapped in a police procedural that integrates live-action elements so seamlessly that more than once I found myself staring at footage of a real actor and marveling at how good video game graphics have gotten in 2023. If you played the original game, the core conceit of its sequel is the same. You point your flashlight at enemies to weaken them and follow up with more traditional weapons to take them down. But Alan Wake 2 builds on this premise in numerous ways. This time around, you're not just playing as the titular Wake, you also play as FBI agent Saga Anderson investigating the disappearance of the Stephen King-esque writer after the events of the previous game trap him in a horror story of seemingly his own creation. Then, when you are playing as Wake, you're now able to rewrite the story itself, changing the fabric of the world around you. The whole game is an audio-visual delight on PC, where Remedy has pulled out all the stops with support for the latest and greatest ray tracing technologies. Play it with headphones or surround sound speakers if it's an option. Hearing shadows quietly whisper Alan's name as I passed by them sent shivers up my spine. Starfield has been on the tip of everyone's tongue for years now, the prospect of a gigantic universe to explore, being able to land and wander around 1,000 Starfield planets, custom shipbuilding, a dream if you want to wander an entire galaxy at your own pace. Our Starfield review talks about the mind-boggling array of activities, the sheer vastness of space, and how Bethesda Game Studios has taken a mighty swing at what seemed to be an impossible task. If you've ever dreamed of carving out your own corner of a planet and calling it home, forging bonds and new relationships, about making it on your own, then Starfield is a truly excellent experience. If you've already jumped into the space game, check out our Starfield walkthrough. It will keep you on the straight and narrow if that's your type of thing. We've even put together the best Starfield builds so you can jump in and start blasting. Trying to decide which is the best MOBA is an argument that could rage on for hours, but League of Legends is a pretty good place to start. Since its release in 2009, it has become a global phenomenon, consistently one of the most played games in the world, and at one point had a player base of more than 100 million. Easier to grasp than Dota 2 but mechanically deeper than Heroes of the Storm, LOL hits a sweet spot in terms of approachability while still managing to constantly evolve. New and updated champions arrive on the Rift several times a year, keeping the game fresh despite its age. Every one of the best LOL champions is unique, too. From ancient gods to pirates to monsters from another world, there's a way to enjoy the game no matter what you're looking for. The iconic competitive FPS is still going strong today with Counter-Strike: Global Offensive. Though CSGO has undergone significant changes over its lifespan, it's still very much the core Counter-Strike experience that revolutionized the multiplayer FPS genre in the 2000s. The standard mode of play is a 5-on-5 demolition-style match on carefully crafted maps that emphasize specific positioning, sightlines, and team strategies. But beyond that, there's a hostage rescue mode, gun game free-for-all, and tons of custom content from years of work by its player base. One of the most exciting things about CSGO is the high-intensity competitive matches where the slightest mistakes could spell doom for your team, or clutch plays could drastically shift the momentum of a match. Counter-Strike has historically been played with a level of precision in both the FPS combat and in its tactics, which makes a bit of a steep learning curve for newcomers. However, this classic game can be wildly rewarding, which you can see from its massive competitive scene. Recently, Valorant has adopted the Counter-Strike formula to great effect, but the high-stakes tactical combat of CSGO is still in a league of its own. With Elden Ring, From Software combines the best of its Souls games with a genuinely exciting open world. You're given the freedom to actually explore, without task markers guiding you, and customary to FromSoft games, there are plenty of secrets and hidden paths to discover. This is a dark but beautiful world, stuffed to a point some of its secrets will likely not be discovered until much later. Of course, Elden Ring is a difficult game, maybe the most difficult From Software game yet, but since you can set your own path and some quality of life changes likely inspired from previous games, Elden Ring is likely to attract even those who weren't sure about the Souls games. This is a genuine breath of fresh air for open-world games, and a game people will be enjoying and talking about for years to come. It's a perfect example of what makes From Software so popular. Rainbow Six Siege is an adept mix of first-person shooting, strategic planning, and tactical teamwork. Two teams of 5 fight for control of a building, where the goal is to capture an objective, defuse a bomb, or secure a hostage. The brilliance of Siege comes in learning these buildings in and out and knowing how to work with your teammates to get in and out most effectively. Map knowledge can trump twitch shooting in the most dire of situations, rewarding its players for smart thinking and careful play. Siege is available on consoles, but the definitive way to play it is on PC with a keyboard and mouse. The Last of Us Part 1 is a stunning remake of one of the most acclaimed PlayStation games of all time, and marks the first time the franchise has been playable on PC. Its launch wasn't the smoothest, with many players experiencing teething issues, but after a few patches and hotfixes, it's now the definitive way to experience Joel and Ellie's journey across post-apocalyptic America for veterans and newcomers. This is a shot-for-shot remake of the original game, so there are practically no changes to speak of beyond the stunning visual overhaul. However, the action and narrative of The Last of Us have held up remarkably well to this day, and remain utterly stellar. Plus, with the huge success of The Last of Us HBO show in 2023, this remake is ideal for show watchers. And the package also includes the game's DLC chapter Left Behind, which expands Ellie's backstory and includes some of the game's very best combat encounters. Few games will make you fear for your life upon encountering the most mundane of inanimate objects the way Prey does, and fewer still will then give you the power to become those objects yourself. It may look like a standard first-person shooter/RPG set aboard a post-disaster space station on the surface, but this immersive sim is one of the strangest of the lot. To combat the ever-present threat of enemies that can look like anything until it's too late, Prey fills your toolbox with a wide range of weird, unique, and often exciting tools and then lets you figure out which ones you most want to use. All of that combined with a story that channels the best of both its clear BioShock and Dishonored inspirations makes Prey is a gem of a single-player PC game that shouldn't be overlooked. There were a couple of different reasons to revisit Cyberpunk 2077 this year. First, the culmination of 3 years' worth of updates and patches polished up the core game to what it arguably should have been at launch with its 2.0 update. On top of that, CD Projekt Red has also been remarkably proactive at bringing NVIDIA's latest graphical bells and whistles to the game, whether that's support for path tracing, frame generation, or ray reconstruction. But it was Phantom Liberty that I thought represented the best of the new additions to the game, adding a meaty side quest complete with new characters and locations to explore. Idris Elba steals the show as Solomon Reed, a sleeper agent whose allegiances and backstory remain in constant flux. But performances are stellar across the board, and there's a fantastic spread of different mission types contained within its runtime. The expansion is by no means short, but it feels tight and focused next to the sprawling ambition of the original Cyberpunk 2077. If you're at all tempted to dip your toe back into the neon lights of Night City, Phantom Liberty is a great way to experience the best it has to offer. The Diablo series is the jewel in Blizzard's crown, a long-running tale of good versus evil, heaven versus hell, and clicking until you develop some kind of repetitive strain injury. Diablo 4, as our D4 review suggests, is the biggest and the best of the series so far, giving us an engrossing story, a rewarding gameplay loop, and beautifully gross visuals. If you've yet to step foot onto the land of Sanctuary, we have plenty of guides to help you get started. Our Diablo 4 classes guide will help you nail down which of the 5 classes suits you best, and we have individual build guides for Barbarian, Sorcerer, Druid, Rogue, and, of course, Necromancer, so you have all the advantages you need when it comes to facing off against Lilith and her armies of evil. Much like the structures you can build in its world, Minecraft just keep getting bigger. Among other sandbox games, it stands alone in delivering on its promise of total freedom. You can break and place blocks in any way you choose, recreating the whole of Game of Thrones Westeros, or crafting a simple seaside shack and living off the land with a fishing rod. Its multiple modes mean you can play it any way you like, which is a liberating feeling, but the presence of enemies, hidden treasure, and twisting cave systems help lend its structure. Its sandbox world never fails to throw ambitious ideas into your head, and then before you know it you've spent 5 hours working, block by block, towards your next self-made objective. Mods and custom maps broaden its scope even further, and it's at its best when you're building your next project collaboratively with a friend. Control, in many ways, feels like the culmination of Remedy's design ideas from its past several games distilled down to their best versions and melded together for one trippy, enthralling adventure. Jesse Faden's story of infiltrating the Federal Bureau of Control's offices comes complete with a stellar set of abilities befitting any good telepath, a propulsive, strange story with a memorable cast and unexpected twists, and a fascinating location that feels rooted in a sense of history. Remedy has filled Control's world with little details that make its stranger ideas really land, giving unexpected life to every corner of its office building veneer. Just like its main location, the oldest house, much more lies beneath the surface of Control, and its mysteries are worth fully exploring. Also, the PC is currently the only place to play with ray tracing enabled, giving the world a more realistic and yet more otherworldly appearance. Maybe that's why this fantastic single-player PC game won our 2019 Game of the Year award? When Resident Evil 4 first released, it marked the switch for the series from a fixed camera perspective to a third-person over-the-shoulder viewpoint. This made things tense and much more immediate and intimate, causing countless other games over the years to adapt the style. Not only that, a new inventory system and shooting controls meant Resident Evil 4 was completely different from what came before, and you weren't even shooting zombies anymore. Our full Resident Evil 4 remake review calls it a spectacularly pretty remake, which also modernizes the controls and some story beats to great effect. The fighting and set pieces combine old and new in exhilarating ways that will satisfy both old and new fans of the series, making sure almost everyone's favorite Resident Evil is ready for the next generation. Resident Evil 2 has been released and ported to new platforms more times than we can count. But trust us on this, you need to play this version. This edition of RE2 is more than a touched-up re-release, it's a fully remastered game that has been rebuilt from the bottom up. This eliminates the less approachable parts of the game, such as the loathsome tank controls and fixed camera angles, and enhances the parts of the experience that were well loved, while also updating the graphics to near photorealistic quality. It's even scarier and more gore-soaked than the initial entry. Plus, you've got the terrifying Mr. X, an indestructible behemoth who will chase you through the police station your player characters Leon and Claire have found themselves trapped in. Both have their own campaigns to play too, meaning you will get plenty of scary but enjoyable hours out of this totally refreshed experience. Everything Titanfall 2 does flawlessly. It's simply one of the best PC games ever made. The flow of pilot combat is still unmatched in showcasing how well shooting and movement can be combined in a first-person game, even with a time-to-kill ratio matching Call of Duty. On the other hand, the hulking, slow, strategic combat of Titan fights brings an entirely different mode of play, and interaction between the two phases is a whole other kettle of fish. Only Doom, 2016, which comes close to having its own entry in this list, competes with the pure thrill of managing to melee execute an opposing Titan. As we point out in our Titanfall 2 campaign review, this FPS is blessed with some of the finest set pieces we've ever seen. It's a masterpiece of pacing and structure, which manages to make even its sewer level a joy to play through. The most well-known mission, effect, and cause has gone down as one of the finest in memory, and for good reason. Don't spoil it for yourself, but do play it as soon as possible. CS2 has sat unchallenged as the pinnacle of competitive FPS games since 2012, with shooting mechanics that reward mechanical skill above all else, a weapon economy that provokes constant strategic reshuffles, and perfectly balanced maps. Valorant, from Riot Games, does all of that, while also mixing in a roster of heroes, each one with passive, active, and ultimate abilities. Some of those abilities have CS2 counterparts, like smokescreens, flashes, and grenades, but there's nuance to how each agent's kit works that ensures every round plays out differently. Learning how to combine agent abilities and apply them to each of the game's maps is a limitless learning curve that always encourages experimentation and unorthodox play. Sure, you can learn some basic ability spots from YouTube, but if you invent your own then you'll always have a better chance of catching your opponent unawares. Valorant may not win over the FPS purists, but it's infinitely more accessible and offers new players an inroad that doesn't involve being really good at clicking on heads. And if you are one of those new players, then allow us to help you out with a guide to all the Valorant characters, a ranking of them in the form of a Valorant tier list, and a helping hand getting used to the gun, spray patterns, and Valorant crosshairs. Dishonored 2 is a near-perfect assassin sim. In the original, you were hunting a target in a huge level, and you could kill them in any way you liked. In this sequel, the maps are bigger and more intricate, your supernatural powers more impressive, and you have the option to play as a second character, Emily, who has her own murderous style. Every level is full of lavish detail, and every avenue to your target feels like its own perfect assassination. The smooth traversal makes it easy to get around and explore every corner of the map, searching for clues until you've planned your route to your final target. Maybe you go in shotgun blaring, maybe you spirit blink to a rooftop and sneak in through a window, or maybe you trick enemies into walking into their own electricity traps until all the guards are dead. And then, in a flash of metal and a blur of blue magic, your blade is in your target's neck, and you're vanishing into the night. MOBAs have earned a reputation for being dense and difficult to learn, but immensely strategic for those who put in the time. Spend some quality time with Dota 2 and you'll understand why. Though all matches take place on one map, and there's only one objective, its 100+ characters and thousands of item combinations make each round feel unique. Because every second matters, matches are always exciting even when they seem slow. Are you farming gold? Are you scouting the enemy? Or crossing the map to help out a teammate? Or heading back to base to heal? Its complexity can scare players off, but those who stick through it will be rewarded with some of the most strategic gameplay around. Respawn Entertainment's follow-up to Star Wars Jedi, Fallen Order has been largely successful if you ignore all of the performance issues PC players have been experiencing. Cal continues his journey as an experienced Jedi. This time he's making his way through the galaxy that continues to be hellbent on eliminating every Jedi in existence. Every aspect of Jedi Survivor has been improved from the first game, from the combat which now features 5 different combat stances, to character customization options which were sorely lacking in Fallen Order. It's true that since its release in 2012, The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim has been ported to just about every platform that can play games, including Amazon Alexa speakers and smart refrigerators. But the king of all Skyrim versions is the one on PC, and it's not even close. That's because the PC version gives you access to years of mods created by the Skyrim community. From adding serious RPG story content to providing ridiculous possibilities like replacing all dragons with Thomas the Tank Engine, the PC version of Skyrim adds nearly endless options to an already expansive, enormous game. You absolutely should play Skyrim on PC if you haven't, and you absolutely should mod it to see how the game has become so much more than it was when it was released. Skyrim is also available with Xbox Game Pass for PC. After a successful early access period of almost 2 years, the roguelike by the makers of Bastion is now out in full. Hades combines the best of Supergiant, stunning art direction, sound and music, and of course a story full of characters that will grow on you for more than the fact that they make for great cosplay. From the get-go, this is supposed to be an inclusive roguelike, dipping its toes into roguelike territory for some permanent buffs to your character. Zagreus, the prince of the underworld, is looking to escape, battling through several dungeons on his way to Olympus. Not only is this the best attempt at genuine storytelling in a roguelike, with plenty of surprises, Hades is also just genuinely great on a technical level, featuring speedy combat with different skills and weapons to fit your preferred playstyle. Since losing doesn't feel like a punishment, you'll soon find yourself in the flow of just one more go, getting to know a varied cast of gods better with every run. With 48 playable characters, and counting, 3 massive main areas to explore, and significant events and activities for mid to late game players monthly, Genshin Impact is one of the most impressive free-to-play games out there, both in terms of activities and general quality. In addition to its story-based campaign, there are plenty of great side quests, companion character events, and side stories that offer a nice chance to better get to know characters, solve puzzles, hunt down collectibles, and participate in limited-time events. Even when you've reached the end of what's available of the ever-growing story, there are boss battles and world activities you can play online with friends, stats and weapon optimizations for leveling your acquired playable characters, and plenty more. Though the late game does tend to be more of a grind due to some of the randomness high-level character builds require and there are other sporadic balance issues, Genshin Impact is generally a joy throughout. Thankfully, the gacha, or system by which you randomly draw rewards with premium currency in hopes of getting a better weapon or character, system isn't too invasive and it's not difficult to earn premium currency without paying. Sure, it can take a while to save enough to get a guaranteed 5-star character, but it's absolutely possible to do and you'll likely earn other characters along the way. When this game first launched as a PlayStation exclusive, it immediately fulfilled the Spider-Man fantasy. Web slinging, whether in combat or as a traversal mechanic, simply feels fantastic, and Spider-Man's New York is one of the most beautiful video game cityscapes to date. The story, which you can enjoy even if you're not familiar with the Marvel Comics universe, takes you on a tour with all of Spider-Man's nemesis, friends, and family members, and even the side missions are continuously fun. Marvel's Spider-Man is the superhero action game to measure licensed games by, full of love for its subject and simply a joy to play, combining stealth, action, and a great story, all of it looking extra sparkly in the remastered PC version. The first of Insomniac's Spider-Man games introduced us to frantic combat and rapid web-swinging through the bustling streets of Manhattan that we'd never seen before in video games, and the Miles Morales sequel is essentially more of the same but improved in every way. Side filler missions like sneaking through an art gallery as MJ are gone, combat abilities and skills have been given more gusto, and the story is a little shorter to ensure it never dips in quality at any point. What's even better is that while Miles Morales is technically a spin-off and as a result, it uses the same map of Manhattan, it's set during the festive period so it automatically becomes one of the best Christmas games, with snow and festive decorations everywhere. The story is all about Miles proving himself as Spider-Man while Peter's taking a leave of absence, and it's certainly one of the best superhero games, if not the best. Years in the making, the return of Master Chief saw the legendary hero hit the ground running with a new and epic adventure. Even after a lengthy amount of hibernation, Master Chief's newest Odyssey shows no signs of ring rust and is augmented by a few new tricks up his Mjolnir armored sleeve. While the main single-player campaign is a treat that's packed with massive set pieces and satisfying action, the multiplayer side is no slouch either and offers a ton of modes to try out. If you're feeling competitive or nostalgic, Halo Infinite hits a sweet spot for fans looking to revisit a franchise that has matured with them over the years. Grand Theft Auto V's sprawling, yet meticulously detailed map is still the high bar to which most open-world games aspire. Not only is it huge, it's incredibly dense with excellent content, not just the driving and shooting and 3 protagonist story that make up its campaign, and not limited to the numerous side activities, but all the sights, sounds, and bustling activity you'd expect to find in a city teeming with humans, seedy underbelly included. With so much to do, explore, and play with, both as a single-player PC game and Grand Theft Auto Online, plus great creative tools and mods, it's truly amazing on multiple levels. With so much to do, explore, and play with, both as a single-player PC game and Grand Theft Auto Online, plus great creative tools and mods, it's truly amazing on multiple levels. Plus with the new Cayo Perico update adding a new solo heist and island to the map, not to mention the game coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X, there's no sign of GTA 5 going to pasture anytime soon. Rockstar has officially confirmed GTA 6 will release in 2025. It will feature a return to Vice City and star the series' first female playable character in a Bonnie and Clyde-inspired adventure, details that were seemingly corroborated by a massive GTA 6 leak. We're as happy to say that Forza is getting better with every game as you are to hear it. There's no other racing game out there that feels or looks like Playground Games' racing spectacle, a game that trades the accuracy of other racers for beautiful vistas and a whole host of activities. Trading the streets of Great Britain for Mexico, Forza is like a holiday on wheels that even manages to teach you some interesting aspects of its home country. This game's job is only done if you want to pack your bags and take a trip once you put the controller down. Whether it's designing your own cars and courses or hurtling down cliffsides and trick races, there's plenty to do, see, and collect in Forza Horizon 5, an exhilarating racing experience for everyone. Apex Legends Surprise launched in February 2019 and it's been raising the bar for battle royales ever since. Inspired by the gunplay and movement from Respawn's acclaimed Titanfall 2, Apex also implemented Overwatch-style character abilities, which made it feel completely distinct from the other major players in the genre. While Apex is out on PlayStation, Xbox, and now Switch and mobile, on PC Apex feels the most fluid and natural as it gives us the freedom to fully capitalize on the range of movement it offers. It also has Apex Arenas as a permanent mode that emulates round-based matches like those in Valorant, where you can buy your abilities and weapons before each round and features 3v3 matchups. So even if battle royales aren't your speed, there's a way for you to get in and enjoy the action. And with its consistent pace of updates every 3 to 4 months, Apex Legends stands out as one of the best free-to-play PC games, year after year. The word simulation tends to come with an air of seriousness, the puff-faced responsibility of landing a plane, or the anatomically accurate stoicism of freezing half to death in the Canadian wastes. Divinity: Original Sin 2 is definitely a simulation. It tracks body temperature, vision cones, and whether an NPC will like you based on your appearance and the general mood of the town. But it's also deeply silly, a breezy yet hardcore tactical RPG in which most battles tend to trigger a series of unintended explosions. It's 2 parts Dragon Age and 1 part Monty Python and features a campaign that tells a decent story while leaving enough space for you to be yelled at by a head on a stick as you trek across the map. God of War made a huge impact when it launched as a PlayStation exclusive in 2018, even taking home IGN's Game of the Year award. But its greatness didn't hinge on its platform, and its arrival on Steam in early 2022 opened it up to a whole new audience, one that should absolutely take the opportunity to play it if they haven't before. This reinvention of the classic series is truly fantastic, all the way from its excellent and challenging combat to the incredibly touching story that weaves it together. It's gorgeously presented and thorough in its detail, taking advantage of its roots while innovating on them in a way that feels fresh again. It's a true standout from the last decade, and it absolutely deserves to be counted amongst other PC greats now that it's here. The highly anticipated sequel, God of War: Ragnarok, is now available on PS5 and PS4. After A Way Out, developer Hazelight is back with another co-op-only adventure with It Takes Two, this time focusing on a couple that wants to get a divorce. May and Cody have reached the end of the rope in their relationship, but their daughter wants to hear none of it and traps her parents in two dolls using the help of a sentient self-help book. It's completely fair to raise one, even both eyebrows at this elevator pitch, but designer Joseph Fares has proven since Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, he knows what he's doing. It Takes Two really delivers on its name. There isn't any game out there right now that comes up with as many ways to have two players work together as this one. Most importantly, thanks to an array of gadgets and locations, It Takes Two keeps things fresh, and it even adds several mini-games to the mix, truly a co-op experience with something for everyone. In short, Final Fantasy XIV is not just the best MMO you can play right now, it's a fantastic Final Fantasy game in its own right. Through its relaunch and subsequent 4 expansions, FFXIV has slowly morphed from a relatively generic good versus evil plot into a sprawling, political, and fantastical thriller. The latest expansion, Endwalker, brings a satisfying conclusion to the game's now 8-plus-year storyline, returning some familiar faces, settling old scores, and of course saving the world from the greatest calamity yet. Don't be scared away by the fact that it's online. Despite being an MMO, Square Enix has streamlined things so much that, if you don't want to, you really don't have to play with other people. Story missions are intended to be tackled solo, and even instance dungeons now have an option for you to enter with computer-controlled party members instead of forcing you into a group with strangers. Of course, it's also a fully fleshed MMO with endgame rating that ranges from totally accessible to maddeningly punishing. Still the only subscription MMO to get it right, and always capable of a resurgence in popularity and quality, World of Warcraft is an easy recommendation once again. Its Warlords of Draenor low point left many wondering if there was still a future for one of the most famous games of all time. Fortunately, recent expansions have shown that it's still alive and well, and it's not going away anytime soon. No matter what you're logging on for, it remains one of the best PC games around. Each expansion provides a massive, co-op-enabled RPG storyline of its own, with only the most climatic moments requiring the presence of other people. Of course, if you want to delve into the endgame and join 24 others in taking down the world's biggest bads, all that is there as well. World of Warcraft rating remains amazing, while constant updates and a solid content plan make it one of the best MMOs on PC. If WoW appears too daunting, you can play it in its base form with World of Warcraft Classic. In our WoW Classic review, we call it a well-implemented redux of a moment in time, which may surprise you with its engaging focus on leveling and the friendliness of its players. If you're looking to get off to a quick start, then our WoW Classic Leveling Guide or WoW Classes Guide will be all the prep you need. Mass Effect Legendary Edition takes the previous 3 Mass Effect games that span the Xbox 360 and Xbox One and remaster them for more advanced hardware, specifically the current-gen consoles and PCs with plenty of power. But that remaster isn't just a graphics refresh. Rather, Mass Effect Legendary Edition brings in a suite of quality-of-life changes to make the game feel and play better. This includes removing some of the jank of the first game. And thrown into the mix is all the DLC content from all 3 games, with the exception of one missing bit from the first game, making it the way to play Mass Effect. Play it you should, as it's one of the best action sci-fi RPGs ever made, complete with an excellent story from BioWare. If soaring through the air and flying around the world is a dream of yours, there's no better game than Microsoft Flight Simulator. You can fly out of almost any airport in the world, including smaller airports in quieter towns, and go literally anywhere on Earth, though landing may be difficult in places like the Grand Canyon and Mount Everest. Microsoft used satellite imagery to recreate the world in-game, and it's improving both the game and map all the time. If there was ever a reason to invest in a flight stick or yoke system, it's Microsoft Flight Simulator. Overwatch 2 is better thought of as a continuation of the first game rather than a full sequel. But while the free-to-play Switch hasn't gone down particularly well, and our Overwatch 2 review shows some split opinions, there's no denying that OW2's gameplay is superior. The 6v6 hero shooter that took over the world in 2016 is now 5v5, and that seemingly small tweak has made the world of difference, opening up maps for more movement, allowing for more individual plays, and making the action far easier to read. It's an easy-to-learn, impossible-to-master work of genius, cobbling together everything Blizzard and the industry at large has learned about how to get players interested and keep them engaged. Even if you're not regularly logging on, it's impossible to dodge the bombardment of fan art, highlight GIFs, and new skins that regularly cycle the internet. Overwatch stopped being just a game almost as soon as it was released and will be a cultural phenomenon remembered for a long time. If you're keen to start out, then check out our Overwatch 2 tier list for the strongest heroes in the game right now. Arcane just knows how to deliver. Dishonored 2 has already spent a long time in our top 30, after much anticipation, but now the studio's next game also deserves a spot. Deathloop is a first-person shooter with elements governed by a time loop. As Assassin Colt, you're trying to escape an island full of gun-toting inhabitants by killing 9 targets and breaking the time loop, forcing you to relive the same day. The only problem, these targets can't be found in the same section of the island, and since you can only visit one section per day, you have to find ways to herd them together over the course of the story. In order to do this, you not only need to familiarize yourself with your target's routines Hitman style, you also need to learn the ins and outs of each section. Arcane once again delivers on great level design, so that there's plenty to explore. The gunplay feels amazing, and is in typical Arcane style, bolstered by a selection of meaningful skills to give you an edge in a fight. This is a time loop game that allows you to retain enough in terms of equipment and progress that things don't get frustrating. Similarly, there are next to no repeats. There's a lot to see in Deathloop, and while it refines systems you'll recognize from other games, it's another uniquely Arcane affair, executed with style and deeply satisfying throughout. Every 22 minutes, everything ends, and restarts again. The sands that had passed between twin planets go back to their original place, a planet that had fallen apart becomes whole, and you awaken to see a mysterious object in space break apart once again. In Outer Wilds, you live through those same 22 minutes until you can successfully solve the puzzle of why you're stuck in the time loop, among other mysteries, by exploring ruins left by a long-dead civilization across multiple planets. This gorgeous, heartfelt space adventure is one of the best examples of video game exploration and discovery. Outer Wilds encourages you to hop into your spaceship and go wherever you want, or just stay on your home planet and see what's happening there. Should you feel lost or need a hint on what to do next, all of your activities and progress are saved to your ship's log, which helpfully tells you when there's still more to discover in an area. The only thing limiting your curiosity is time, but even that can sometimes be your ally. The short expansions puzzles are just as enjoyable as what you'll find in the rest of Outer Wilds, but the pervasive, menacing tension and echoes of the eye makes each step forward in the overall mystery feel even more rewarding. Football, but with cars, it's that simple and that complicated. Rocket League is, to the beginner, a fast arcade sport where vehicles slam into each other at 100 miles per hour and occasionally bundle the ball into the net. But as you get to grips with the controls, it turns into an aerial acrobatic show with front flip assists, mid-air twirls, and last-second winners. The great thing about Rocket League is that it's fun at both of these levels. You can gather some friends on a sofa and set up a casual 1v1 tournament, with bonus scores for the flashiest goals. You can team up with a squad and really dive into the tactics, rotating goalkeepers, and trying to score the perfect team goal. If you want, you can switch it entirely to a game of hockey, with a puck instead of a ball. Each time you play you can feel yourself improving, and your first properly good goal, not one where you've accidentally tapped it in with your bumper, is a memorable moment. IO Interactive's Grand World of Assassination trilogy reached its final chapter in 2021, as Hitman 3 built on the efforts made by its predecessors to create a perfectly executed experience. Bigger, bolder, and more cunning than ever, Agent 47's journey around the world saw him explore an opulent Dubai skyscraper, solve a murder mystery in an ancient British mansion, and turn a train into a slaughterhouse as he worked his way through each cabin. Each destination offers not only some devilishly delicious ways to eliminate targets, but also plenty of room for experimentation that leads to hilarious and grim demises for anyone who gets in your way. Dante's back and better than ever. At long last, Capcom released Devil May Cry 5, which brings the crew from the 4 previous games together to fight a new threat of a demonic nature. Not only do you get to see Dante back in action with all his signature tricks, and a few new ones, we get to see Nero and his new interchangeable robot arms, plus new hero V and his 2 controllable demon familiars. Together, they'll drive back the demon hordes the only way they know how in smokin' sexy style. There's a long campaign to play through with challenging enemies and bosses across several difficulty modes, or there's the new version of the Bloody Palace, a survival gauntlet that pits you against 101 levels of baddies for you to slice and smash through. It's one of the best PC games if you're an action fan looking for a fun story or a combo system to master. Hollow Knight is one of the best modern Metroidvanias around. It's beautiful, expansive, and full of delightful secrets to discover that will keep you playing for dozens of hours. The Kingdom of Hollowness is a brutal one, and Hollow Knight doesn't ease you into it, causing a lot of people to bounce off of it initially, but when it finally gets its hooks in you it's irresistibly hard to put down. Its sprawling caves open up and offer multiple paths to you at any given time, but no matter which way you go there are exciting bosses to fight and significant power-ups to make you stronger. And even though it was already a massive game, Hollow Knight has only gotten bigger since its launch in early 2017. Developer Team Cherry released multiple free updates with new areas and bosses, each harder than the last. But whether you just want to get to the credits, find the true ending, or push even farther than that, Hollow Knight is a world worth exploring. While the base game was a lot of fun, as you can tell from our Monster Hunter Rise review, it's only with the Sunbreak expansion that Monster Hunter Rise finally feels complete. What begins as a mission to protect your village from rampaging beasts soon becomes an adventure to the other side of the world to stop evil creatures from destroying everything. Taking on these colossal creatures, whether playing with friends or on your own, is a thrilling, white-knuckle ride against some of the best designed bosses ever. If this sounds like your idea of a great time, check out our Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak weapon tier list to get started with the best weapon. A sequel that's just as good as the original, Little Nightmares 2 once again puts you in the shoes of a vulnerable kid trying to escape the clutches of monstrous adults. This time you're not alone though. You play as Mono, the boy wearing a paper bag, but you're joined by Six, the girl with the yellow jacket who starred in the original game. As you'd expect, there are enemies to avoid or fight, plus lots of environmental hazards and traps to work your way around. The visual design and sound design are as atmospheric as ever, which helps create a baseline sense of unease as you traverse the Pale City. It's on the shorter sides of these best PC games, but it's still all too memorable. Portal 2 remains one of the funniest and most inventive puzzlers in games. It successfully built on the mind-bending multidimensional ideas of the first game and somehow elevated its storytelling and characterization to become incredibly fun and memorable. Those things alone would make Portal 2 worthy of your attention, but there's additional content that comes with playing the game on PC. Not only is there online and local co-op that extend the game beyond its single-player offering, but there's a huge amount of user-created content that includes whole story campaigns. Portal 2 is great fun no matter where you play it, but with modding and puzzles built by other players, you get a superior experience on PC and a ton more Portal to play for free. Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition bundles together the former PS4 exclusive with its excellent DLC chapter, Frozen Wilds, into a package that PC players won't want to miss. Somewhere in the US, after an unknown apocalyptic event, tribes of humans try to live amongst the hordes of animalistic robots that roam the lands. But you play Aloy, an outcast who is looking to do more than just survive but also find answers. While your human enemies are armed with the same array of spears, bows and slings as you are, taking on the machines, particularly the larger varieties, requires a lot more tactical thinking. There is a story to play through, one which helps explain the world and how it came to be this way, and that's quite enjoyable on its own. But it's exploring the beautiful but desolate urban areas reclaimed by trees and plants, hunting down your metal prey via traps and frontal attacks, and finally bringing it down after a long tense battle that secures Horizon a spot on the best PC games list. Rounding off an epic trilogy of strategy games, Total War, Warhammer 3 brings together the highlights from the previous games in the series into one magnificent conclusion. It's the culmination of years' worth of iteration by Creative Assembly, and it's the ultimate Warhammer fantasy experience and one of the best Total War games. 7 factions, multiple different campaign types, and online campaign co-op are but a few reasons to take a stroll into the old world once more, but you'll stick around for longer than ever thanks to thoroughly applied polish at every level of the game. It's also wildly ambitious, with the sprawling Immortal Empires map encompassing everything that Creative Assembly has ever made for the 3 Warhammer games. Take a glance at our Total War, Warhammer 3 review for our complete take. Deep, lengthy RPGs are a staple of PC gaming, and very few have put a larger chunk of sophisticated content forward than The Witcher 3, Wild Hunt has. Its massive sandbox open-world areas impress, both in terms of scope and density. They're generously dotted with great monsters to slay, tantalizing mysteries to solve, and personal stories to unfurl. It's also one of the most impressive overall productions in gaming history, with reams of excellently written dialogue performed by a stellar voice cast, an incredible original soundtrack, and graphics that qualify as both a technical and artistic achievement. So, did you like the games I recommended? So leave your like, subscribe to the channel to follow me, and activate the bell because I post a lot of videos on this channel and you can't miss it. I would like to remind you that in the description we have a list of different products that can make your gaming experience much better. If you want to buy, the link will be in the description. Anyway, thank you very much for following me this far, and until next time, bye.